watching Sky News. Good morning. Now we're going to take you live to Houghton Price shortly, where the results are... I am a journalist, and lots of my friends have been saying they've switched off the news altogether. They're overwhelmed. It's giving them anxiety. If you're the same, what if I offered you 4 ways to ditch the news anxiety, to stay informed, all while reclaiming control of your emotional well-being? These ways are really quick wins, and I'll tell you why I know they're quick wins, because I actually use them. I've been a journalist for 22 years, so if you want them, come on, let's go. Hi Bab, I'm Marv. So like I said, I'm a journalist. You might know me here on YouTube as someone who talks about well-being, self-confidence, how to kind of change your life, all sorts of stuff around the menopause, because I'm in my 50s, right? So I'm just talking about stuff and sharing things, my reflections, because I want to share with you and I want to build a community. But I also work in television and radio news, and ever since I've been freelancing the last 17 years, I've worked in a range of different newsrooms with different agendas and various approaches. So when I talk about consuming news safely, I'm speaking as someone who really cares deeply about your well-being as much as I care about my own. And I have to protect my well-being, being in the industry. And I think it really helps you getting this information from me as an insider. And seriously, I do understand how you're feeling. We are all feeling it right now. Constant news alerts, what seems like endless crises. There are shootings, there are stabbings, there are plane crashes, political upheavals, the world's on fire, you name it, and it's making you shut down. It makes me shut down. But what I want to urge you to do is not shut down. I don't think it's a good idea to avoid the news, because I really believe that we should all be informed about what's going on around us. I think if we're blinkered to it, it can be dangerous if we are blinkered to it. What's not happening in this video is I'm not going to shame the sources that you're reading, watching or listening to. Okay, that's not what it's about. All right, let's get into these 4 strategies, shall we? 1, practice rigorous news curation. I've got a full video on that about how to figure out fake news, disinformation, misinformation. But I want you to feel that you are being informed without being secretly manipulated. So the first thing I want you to do is look beyond the flashy headlines, because they of course have been designed to kind of trigger your emotions. They're written specifically to provoke an emotional response. It might be fear, outrage, and laughter. And of course it's all to catch your attention, to get the click, to make you watch. But often the headlines alone don't tell the real story. They can't anyway, right? They can't, because they're literally just a few words. So there's no context, there's no nuance. That's buried much deeper in the article or programme. So you might read an article headline and go, oh, God, that's awful, I don't want to read anymore. And I get it, we're in a world where skim reading, scrolling, you're busy, you want to get to the next thing, you want to get things done. But reading an article in full has a huge benefit, and it means that you can kind of discover the stories, you might discover that these stories aren't as catastrophic as they first appear. There might not be absolutes. For example, often there are stories we write that we talk about which are proposals, which are suggestions, which are consultations that politicians might want to bring into action. And so I would ask you to train yourself and go, what facts are actually being presented here? What's the evidence? What's the context that I am missing? For me, that's really useful. My mental anguish has gone. It's gone because you are not reacting to every alarming headline. I started practicing this a good year ago, and I was really saving like needless hours of worrying, because you're distinguishing between what is genuinely concerning or should be a matter of concern versus sensationalism and the clickbait and the stuff that makes you just scroll through. It's an amazing superpower. Honestly, give it a try. It means that you're going to be informed, not manipulated. So why not start with just 1 story a day, read it in full, look for the additional sources, figure out if the full picture is there compared to the headline. And it doesn't mean that in doing that, the journalist is willfully manipulating you. They are trying to get you to read more but they got to catch you somehow. It doesn't mean that story is a lie. Okay? Right. Number 2, recognize that your news sources have all sorts of different viewpoints. So did you know that actually sticking to just one news source could be kind of quite similar to like eating the same meal all the time? Like if you love a Mackie D's or you love a cheeseburger with fries on the side, you would want to eat that every day. But if you ate it every day, clearly you're going to get scurvy. When we keep consuming news that really just aligns to our beliefs and our beliefs alone, then you're starting to live in an echo chamber. And it kind of increases anxiety that the other side are the other side, like it's them and us, them and us. So what I do is I rotate my news sources. I have 2 left and left of centre sources that I look at, and I also have 2 right-leaning sources that I look at, and particularly around the same stories. The benefit for me and the benefit for you is, when your friend or your family member brings up that controversial topic and you're like, I don't want to talk about it, and you get anxious and you get defensive. Instead, because you've looked at right-leaning and left sources, you can say, well, yeah, I've heard that perspective, but I've also kind of read or heard this particular view. And what it potentially means is you could become like a bridge builder, the wise woman who can kind of hold space and talk about different ideas without feeling threatened by them. And, particularly with people that you can influence, your friends, your families, your work colleagues, you might find that your gatherings, your hangouts come a little bit more peaceful, right? And you're protecting yourself from the stress that comes from it's black and white, it's this and that. You're protecting yourself from all that polarization because you're training your brain to become a little bit more flexible, a little bit more nuanced, that you've researched, because you're savvy, right? Start with one news source, one additional news source with a different perspective, right? And kind of notice how it feels learning all of those multiple perspectives. And of course, it's going to feel uncomfortable at first. If you read this paper and you have done for 20, 30 years and your dad and your mom read it, of course, it's going to feel weird seeing the other side. You're probably going to be like, no, don't believe it. But it's really important, I think, around complex issues. And, you've lived enough life to know that the majority of issues in this world are not just black and white. So now your news consumption can reflect your wisdom around that. What do you think? All right, I am halfway through my video and I wanted to let you know, as we're talking about anxiety and lessening worry, I've got a brilliant Calming Your Mind journal in my store. I'm a coach. I talk about clarity all the time. I help women find clarity. So if the workbook isn't enough for you, I do one-to-one calls. Get in touch if you like. All my details are in the description box. Right, strategy 3, setting boundaries around your news consumption. What if I told you that the news is designed to keep you hooked in a way that kind of slot machines in the casino, in the bingo hall, in the betting shop are? And don't laugh, I love bingo. But Marv, of course they're designed to hook you in. All right, so what I want you to do is try and break that cycle, reclaim your peace of mind. And in the same way that kind of clever content creators here on YouTube, on Instagram, they make content to keep you engaged. It might be fear, shock, it might be like you making you laugh. Of course, then, news outlets and the headlines are written by the same kind of smart reporters who want to grab your attention. And of course, all of it kind of gives you maybe a little bit of FOMO if you dare to look away. And this kind of constant consumption can trigger our stress response. And we all know stress, and boy, we hate stress. I hate stress. But what it does is it releases that cortisol, and the cortisol affects everything from sleep to your immune system. Been there, I know you've been there. And so instead of making yourself available to the news 24/7, find times that you consume the news and stick to them and reduce it. So for me, I don't watch, listen, or read any news in the morning. Only if I am obviously doing my breakfast show job, I have to. But other times, I do not look at news, mainly about lunchtime. So I'll stop, I'll make myself something to eat, I'll have a cup of coffee, big strong coffee, and then I will scroll through a couple of news apps and read some stories. I'm boxing off my time. I'm setting boundaries. And then I read the news and I go, okay, awful, dreadful. Oh, what can I do about it? And then I partition it and I crack on with other stuff, right? And I've suggested this to lots of my clients as well, and they find better sleep, more energy to go and do other things. You're not thinking and worrying about the news all the time. And I also suggest take control of the notifications on your phone. Turn off the breaking news sound. Turn that notification off. I really am an advocate of just training your brain to break that cycle. Because when you do, and you can put your news time into that little box, you've got plenty of other things you can focus on then. Read a new novel, watch a new show on a streaming service, go and do Pilates, start that creative thing that you're wanting to do that you've been putting off, right? Shut it down. Don't be beholden to the news every day. Figure out what part of the day is good for you. Here's an idea. Same time every day, stick to it for a week. And I bet you're going to see the difference in not constantly embracing the continuous news cycle. I would also suggest write it down in a gratitude journal. Start writing down the things that you are noticing, because your mental health and well-being is automatically being transformed, right? The next one is my last one, and by no means it is not the least. This is about understanding your spheres of control. It's something I talk to my clients about all the time. It is my secret that I use for deciding on how I'm going to focus attention on everything around what you can control, what you can influence, and what concerns you. And it's basically it's kind of attributed to Stephen Covey's concept of circles of influence. It is a super powerful tool. Like I said, I judge everything by it. And so what I do is every news story I evaluate through these 3 spheres. So let's break these down. Your sphere of control are the things that you can directly impact with your actions. So you watch a devastating news story about an earthquake or war. Can you sign a petition? Can you donate to a cause? Can you join a lawful protest? Can you write to your MP? These are actions within your sphere of control. Within your sphere of influence, these are areas where maybe, can you encourage others to take action? Discuss a matter with your friends or your family to raise awareness. And around your sphere of concern, these are obviously things that you can't control or influence. Might be interest rates, foreign policy decisions, any political decisions or words coming out of political leaders' mouths, corporate mergers. Acknowledge it, but then let it go. And I also want to say that by letting go, it doesn't mean you don't care. It's interesting when I talk to my friends about how I do this. They're like, don't you care? Of course it means I care. I'm a journalist. How can I not care? But by focusing your energy on where you can make a difference, it means that you can avoid the helplessness and the anxiety that comes from feeling responsible for things that are beyond your control. It is tough, but I want peace and clarity for you. My life has changed. And here's an idea. Take a news story that upsets you. Ask yourself, is it in my sphere of control, influence, or just concern? Whatever your answer is, if it's only in your sphere of concern, acknowledge it consciously. Take it and release it. Right? Like I said, it doesn't mean that you don't care. It means that you're being strategic and precious with your energy. And for me, I just say that at this stage of our lives, we've got to be really selective about where we invest our emotions, because the onslaught of everything else that happens to us is enough. We don't need any more. Just see how that goes and kind of notice how empowering it's going to be to distinguish between what you can change and what you can't. Try it. And if you found this helpful, please subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell. And look out for the video where I talk about how you can spot fake news and not get caught up in all the madness and figuring out what's right and wrong. Lots of other videos on my channel as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.